Today, we're diving into some pretty heavy news coming out of Syria. With more than 1,000 reported dead in the latest violence, people are growing increasingly concerned that Syria could be facing the threat of civil war again. But what's really going on here? Let's break it down. Now, we've all heard about the ongoing conflict in Syria, right? It's been one of the most devastating humanitarian crises in recent history. But the situation over the last few weeks has sparked new fears that the country could be heading into a full-scale civil war again. Reports are coming in that more than 1,000 people have been killed, and this is in a relatively short period. Things have escalated quickly, and the violence seems to be spreading. Protests, clashes, and military operations have all contributed to the rising death toll. It's incredibly worrying, especially since we thought the worst of the conflict might have been behind us. Let's take a step back. Syria has been torn apart by civil war since 2011, with different factions, government forces, rebel groups, and extremist organizations fighting for control. The war has led to hundreds of thousands of deaths and displaced millions of people. The international community has struggled to intervene effectively, and it's left the Syrian people to fend for themselves. But this new wave of violence, it's not just about military skirmishes or political differences. It's a sign that deeper divisions within the country are once again tearing people apart. So what's driving this new escalation? Well, a couple of factors are coming into play. First, we've got the ongoing battle between Syrian government forces, which are backed by Russia and Iran, and opposition groups that are still fighting for a different future. The government's grip on power is weakening, and that's fueling protests, especially in the north and east of the country. Then, there's the issue of foreign influence. We've got the US still involved, with military presence in the northeast, and Turkey, which has been dealing with its own security concerns related to Kurdish groups. All of these outside powers have been adding fuel to the fire, sometimes making the situation worse instead of helping to stabilize things. But the real tragedy here, the civilians caught in the middle. Imagine being in a place where it feels like there's no safe place anymore, no future, and no way out. That's the reality for millions of Syrians. Families are being displaced, cities are being destroyed, and basic services like healthcare and education are almost non-existent in some areas. With the death toll rising, it's clear that people are living in constant fear. And despite the media attention, it seems like the international response is still way too slow. So, why is this being called a civil war again? Well, there's a real fear that Syria is sliding back into the same kind of all-out civil war it faced back in 2011, but with even more factions and complexities involved. The opposition groups, the government, extremist organizations, it's a mix of everyone fighting for power. If there's no dialogue, no ceasefire, this could spiral into something much worse than what we've seen in the past. And it's not just about military clashes. It's about the fabric of the country being torn apart, ethnic and religious divisions growing, with people being pushed to take sides, sometimes in extreme ways. Now, let's talk about what the world's doing about it. Honestly, it doesn't feel like enough. The UN has condemned the violence, but we've seen this before, statements, but little action. The major powers involved in the conflict seem to have their own agendas, and it's leaving ordinary Syrians to pay the price. Some countries, like Turkey and the US, have called for an immediate ceasefire, but Russia and Iran, backing the Syrian government, have different ideas. So, the international community is pretty divided, which is making the whole situation even messier. So, where do we go from here? Well, it's hard to say. The fear is that unless there's serious diplomatic intervention and a willingness from all sides to put down their arms, Syria could face an even longer and deadlier chapter. But we can't forget that the people of Syria are the ones paying the price. We can only hope that the international community steps up in a way that prevents even more death and destruction. So, there you have it. Syria is facing a terrifying future right now, and the possibility of civil war is looming large. If this continues, it could have major implications for the entire region, and maybe even the world. But the real question is, how much longer will the international community wait before actually doing something to help?